Welcome to Storycomic Presents, where we interview amazing storytellers and artists. This is episode 215. I'm your host, Barney Smith of Storycomic.com, and we're excited to have back with us the internationally acclaimed game designer and owner of Shewstone Publishing, Andrew Gronosky.
Thank you, Barney. And yes, you said my name right again. So congratulations.
Yeah.
You're nervous about it, but without prompting. Thank you. I'm really glad to be back. Thank you for inviting me.
You're welcome. So yeah, you're back on you're here first on episode 179, and now you're here on 215. And I told you, I said, when you have a new book coming out, please come back on. And you did reach out to me and you said, yes, I do have a new book coming out, The Bestiary of Enchanted England, that is a part of your Magonomia world. And
Right.
It's so exciting. So as of this recording, it is coming out on October 25th, 2022. And that's coming out as a Kickstarter. And you already have a lot of people that are following its launch. So that's pretty exciting already.
I'm excited about it. Yeah.
And if I recall correctly, when you were talking to us a few episodes ago, you were saying, listen, there are some things that I want to fill in as some supplements. And one of them was a bestiary. Was this something that you knew ahead of time you wanted to do? Or is this something that was just fans were just clamoring to have more bestiary?
No, this is something that I wanted to do. Okay. You asked me in our last episode what had to be cut. And it wasn't that I cut content, it's that I stopped adding content, right? And some of that was the enchanted creatures that we just didn't really get to before the book was really, the core rulebook was really full. The core book is huge, and to the point where it's a bit of a problem. But so not all the creatures fit. And some of the basics, like a basilisk, right, that you've heard of, and a unicorn, didn't get into the core book. So I worked with my freelance creators, and I asked around some of my colleagues who used to freelance with me for another historical fantasy game, Ars Magica. And I got a team of 3 authors together and asked them what are their ideas for enchanted creatures. And I'll be honest, Barney, they really surprised me with authentic legends that went off the beaten path, things I had never heard of.
Wow.
But I mean, just today, Timothy gave me a bunch of details about where he got these ideas, and some of them I've seen. So you're going to find in this book a mix of familiar creatures from folklore, and then some stuff that's really unexpected. I mean, my favorite example is the Mer-chicken of Portland, and I want to keep it mysterious, the mysterious Mer-chicken, but this is a real thing. It's a giant chicken that used to appear off in the ocean off the island of Portland, according to legend.
So I'm curious about that. So this is all just English.
It's Britain, so it's going to include Wales. We didn't actually get into Scotland. Okay. And I was thinking maybe Scotland could be its own whole second volume of the bestiary if we get to that point. We have to see how the market receives this product. Right. But we didn't need to go into Scotland to fill up a book, and so that's for later. And of course, Ireland is similar. There's a lot of lore in Ireland. So we covered England, including Cornwall, and Wales, really, for this book. And some of the creatures, like the basilisk or unicorn, are just from general European lore, but also would be encountered in English stories.
And now, are any of these creatures completely imagined, or are they all based off of actual lore? Was there anything that you or your freelancer just created?
Everything is authentic. Some of it is a new spin. And I'll give you an example, because the authors really got excited about fitting legends into the time period of Magonomia, which is the Elizabethan period, the 16th century. It's and for example, elves exist in British folklore. They're the people under the hills. They're these mysterious, magical people that come out in the mist and they live underground. And the authors imagined as England is changing, right, and it's gone from its kind of Arthurian ancient past through the Middle Ages and into the Renaissance. How have the elves adapted? And so there's a Renaissance spin to legends that are mostly ancient. And the answer, I'll give away a little spoiler or teaser here, is that the elves blend in, that they walk among us, and they found places in cities where they've moved in, and they're just trying to pass as human. But they still got their own society, and they're still these immortal, magical people who come and go.
And a part of what you have in your game as well is some hat tipping to science as well, with the alchemy piece to it. Did you feel as though you had to keep staying within that theme as you introduced your creatures as well?
Oh, that's a great question. There's not a lot of connection between science, but in the broader game, there's not a lot of connection between the bestiary and what we would call science. But a strong theme of Magonomia is that in the 16th century, they hadn't sorted out the difference between what we call magic and what we call science. It was all philosophy. And that really comes through. It was actually right after Elizabeth that what we call the scientific method got started. The answer is it didn't affect the bestiary very much.
Now, to remind our listeners and readers out there as well, is like you used the Fate core system to create the game. Remind us again, what was the pieces of the Fate core system that attracted you to making your game?
Thanks. There were a few things that really stood out about Fate to me when I was trying to decide what engine I want to use for this game. When people talk about Fate, usually the first thing they mention are aspects. Aspects are statements of what's important about a character. They're these short, open-ended statements. The basilisk has probably an aspect that it can kill you by looking at you, right? This is a very important thing, and in Fate, it does tie into the mechanics, but the important thing is that there are these open-ended statements that you can make to assert what's important about the character and how they fit into the story. So that's the first thing people think about when they think about Fate, and it's a selling point of the system. It really is. What really clinched it for me was something else called the Fate Fractal. And the Fate Fractal is a principle in Fate that anything, a location, a vehicle, can be modeled using the same attributes as a character. And a spell can have aspects. A spell can have skills, and it can behave like a character in a mechanical sense. It uses the same rules that a character uses. And this gave me wide open options for what to do with magic. So that's what really appealed to me about the Fate system.
Now, talk to us a little bit about this upcoming Kickstarter that you're doing with the supplement book, The Bestiary of England. What are some of the things that on here? How does this enhance the game? Say somebody has the core rule book.
Yeah.
What are some aspects of this supplement that will enhance a game?
Something that we had to do to get the creatures to fit in to the core rule book was we just wrote the creatures and their powers like you would in a normal role-playing game supplement. Because all the creatures are authentic, there are real legends connected to them, and we summarize those in this book. So you get the context, and more importantly, all of the freelance authors are really good at writing plot hooks for how to tie the creature into and make a story out of it. It's not a fully developed scenario. Okay. Here's an example. So the questing beast from Arthurian legend is this strange chimeric creature made up of a bunch of different animals. It's got the legs of a stag and the body of a lion and so on. And here's an example of a plot hook that's written into the book. Cries in the woods. The wizards are called to investigate the woodlands forming part of a large estate. The sounds of hunting dogs have been heard after night. And I'll add, the questing beast had this sound that came with it of like a pack of dogs wherever it went. They were invisible. No signs of a hunt can be found. Investigating, it seems there may be 2 packs of dogs at either end of the woods, but the physical evidence suggests otherwise. Is this actually a pair of questing beasts issuing mating calls and unable to find each other? Can the wizards play matchmakers before the landowner grows weary? So that's an example of a plot hook. And that's something that the book has for every creature. We have at least 2, and I'm aiming for 3 of these kinds of plot hooks, both to be usable and also to help stimulate your imagination so that you can help you make your own stories about them.
Now, would you be able to utilize this as a creatures as could this bestiary be used as making creatures as, say, player characters or familiars, or is it just mostly for antagonists?
I wouldn't say antagonists. I would say it's definitely all for non-player characters. For Magonomia, we're not going into making player characters of fantastic creatures because we want to keep the enchantment alive. We want to keep some distance and mystery, even between the wizard characters and this wondrous world. So there are fantastic creatures in this world, but they're all a big deal. When they show up, it's remarkable, and we want to make it memorable. So that's the angle that we've taken.
Right. And how is the supplement book kind of split up? Is it split up into like how to utilize them as aspects, and or does it have like a nice long list of a lot of sample characters on that?
Each creature is written up over a few pages, and they're self-contained. So the story hooks for the questing beast are in the questing beast chapter after its statistics. Actually, we've got a picture of each creature, original artwork done by humans.
Cool.
And the artwork is black and white. To make it look kind of like a Renaissance book, and also to keep the cost under control.
Right. And now, so talk to us a bit about that, of the putting together the book. For instance, was this something that you worked as part of one of your freelance team members to help put the book together, or is that something that you kind of took charge of, saying, I want to make sure this stuff is in the first part of the book and this part is in the last part of the book? How did that whole process work?
It was a little of both. What I did first is I recruited the creative team, asking around among the freelancers in my stable who was interested, who had availability. And 3 out of the 4 people that I had in mind answered the call.
Nice.
I gave them an initial list of British creatures to seed their interest. And it's funny because I'm not going to name names, but one of the authors said, "Oh, I'll just take these 4 off of that list, or I'll start with these 6." And then the other author said, "Oh, well, now since you've identified all these, I'm going to go find things that are not on your list." But that worked out really well. So it enabled us to flesh out the book. And really, from a project planning perspective, I started by looking at how many creatures do we need to make a book. Then we couldn't resist adding to that. And then adding some more. And that's where the stretch goals for the Kickstarter come in. There is a cost to illustrating all of these creatures. Some of them we're saving as stretch goals. So the more people pledge, the more stuff goes in the book.
Nice. And how many pages right now is the book slated to be?
And it'll be 150-ish pages, I think. That stretch goals will add to that.
Right.
And I haven't really, like I said, added it up.
Right. And so you mentioned when you made Magonomia that you were being deliberate in putting in the Fate core rule system inside the source book as well, correct?
Right. Well, I put it into the core rule book,
right.
Not putting it into the source book. The source book is a supplement, so it assumes that you have access to Fate or the Magonomia core book. There's relatively little that is in this book that doesn't stand alone. So there's relatively little that you need from Magonomia core to use the bestiary.
Okay.
Right. They go together, but the question in my mind is, can I paste in enough from there would be a few spells in the core book. And can I just put those in and have this be really a standalone thing for people who know Fate? I think I can, but there may be 1 or 2 creatures where the spells don't fit in. So that's an open question. You'll have to find out when I launch the Kickstarter, I guess.
But that would be interesting because then it'll be usable for other Fate core titles then as well.
90% of it, 95% will be.
Wow.
I know that. And the lore and the story hooks are useful to any game that's fantasy in kind of the same genre. One of the things that I'm definitely doing with Shewstone is we're making games for people who enjoy to read. I believe that there's a strong collector market of people who have more time to read role-playing games than they have time to play them. And I'm not writing for them, but I'm definitely feeding that audience. Our games are meant to be played, no question, but all of us love to read. And we're writing games that are fun to read and pricing them so that you can read that you don't have to feel bad. Right. So, the digital version of this book is going to be $10 in the Kickstarter.
And so talk to us a little bit before we went live. We were mentioning some of your tier systems, and you said something very interesting that I want other creators to keep in mind on this. You mentioned how important that dollar tier is. Do you want to explain that?
Yeah. So we have a $1 backer tier on Kickstarter. And there are a couple of reasons for it. But Kickstarter, I want everybody to understand, is social media. So you can follow your friends on Kickstarter, you can follow creators on Kickstarter, and you get notification when they get involved in a project, when your friend pledges and so on. If you pledge $1, right, first of all, you can say that you're a backer because you are. And you can post to social media that you're a backer and help get the word out. In the role-playing industry, The hard thing is not making a great game. Believe it or not, that's relatively easy. The hard thing is getting it noticed.
Mm.
And the $1 backer tier makes your pledge visible to your network. It gives you something you can share. So that's why the $1 pledge is really helpful. And I'll expand on this idea of Kickstarter as social media, because when you're running a business, what you'll find is that major social media platforms will limit your reach to your backers. They want to charge you for promotion to actually even reach all of your followers.
Oh, wow.
Kickstarter has the opposite financial incentive. They get money when people back. So they have a financial incentive to amplify your message. Right. So that's how I'm trying to build the audience and get Magonomia and our fun to read projects like a Bestiary of Enchanted England to get them known. Marketing is a big part of what Kickstarter is going to do for us, or what we're using it for. We want to raise the crowd more so than the money, because really, when you're making a role-playing game, you have to pay the money up front so that the game can be finished and delivered in a reasonable time. And I do want to say that with the Bestiary, I mean, you can tell we've been talking about it like it's done. There will be a playtest ready manuscript, and as soon as the campaign ends, we'll deliver that to prove that there is a game, or there's a book there. Then it goes into another round of playtesting. I've done some already, and editing and layout, and that takes a few months. So it'll be delivered in the summer of next year.
Okay. All right. And you did mention too before I went live is like your tiers don't mention a physical copy on
That's right. Yep. The reason for that is that printing adds risk, cost, and complexity. And I don't want to go into too much of it, but our distribution partner is DriveThruRPG. And they actually make it really easy for creators and for backers to get print copies into people's hands, because you can just make a print-on-demand product. The way it works is that everybody who backs a Bestiary of Enchanted England will get the digital copy delivered through DriveThruRPG, and they'll get a coupon code for ordering the print copy when it's ready. And from a business perspective, DriveThruRPG, which does this thousands of times a day, is going to handle the taxes, the printing, all the logistics, distribution, and shipping, right, for me. And the backers pay literally the actual costs of paper, ink, the process, and the taxes and delivery fees. So I think that works out really well for everybody. And I don't have to maintain inventory. I don't have to do the Massachusetts sales tax paperwork. So that's why it's like that. A lot of Kickstarters I've seen separate the physical tier from the electronic tier, but that is if you're doing an offset print run and if you already have a print distribution business going. Shewstone operates part-time, so I think that's low value activity, and I'm delegating it to my partner.
Right. Now, what are some of the things, this being another Kickstarter that you've been able to do, what are some of the lessons learned that you had from your previous Kickstarters that you're able to actually implement in this one?
Well, this is really my first Kickstarter. I had a crowdfunding project on another platform, Game on Tabletop. And I did that because I had some political objections to Kickstarter policy at the time related to their unions. But that's behind me now. But what have I learned from crowdfunding? Great question. First, you need to set an achievable base goal, and you set yourself up for success with a modest base goal, and then people begin to really engage with it. It's strange. It doesn't make sense to me, but that's the psychology of Kickstarters, and you'll see most successful companies aim to fund in the first day. I'll be happy to fund in the first week. So that's one thing. Nobody complained that I kept it simple last time. Okay. So keeping the reward tier simple, not going nuts with that. And I've learned from backing a lot of role-playing game Kickstarters that stretch goals can actually be a real problem. Stretch goals don't always pay for themselves. So our approach to stretch goals is adding enhancements to the same book. I've got the writers lined up. All I need to do is give them the green light and set a deadline, and they'll write the stretch goals. Artwork is actually fast to produce compared to writing. So if the money's there, the illustrators are waiting. They're hungry for work. So to me, the stretch goals are product enhancements, not separate products.
Okay.
So I'm keeping things simple. If Shewstone had been around for 20 years, not 6, if we had 40 items in our catalog rather than 3, then, I might be inclined to bundle more stuff in stretch goals. I'm not really sure that that's worth the effort. People want to pledge to a project because they're excited about that project. So here's the lesson. Although you can make a Kickstarter as complicated as you want, keeping it focused helps. And I'm also very intentionally I sized the project so that it can be low cost, so it can be $10, because I'm trying to attract people who maybe haven't heard of Magonomia, but who think that a bestiary for role-playing games based on authentic legends sounds cool and that they'd like to read it. Grow the Magonomia audience that way, of course.
Now, what are some of your other ideas about this? There's so many different directions of making them different geographic locations for your bestiary, doing different locations. What are some of the ideas you have on your list?
For stretch goals?
Yeah.
Well, one of the examples is actually natural creatures, not supernatural ones. You can make stories, and we've got this kind of queued up. We can make stories around, for instance, bears in England, or snakes, that are so natural creatures. We had 2 ideas for spirits of the mines. So there are 2 different kinds of mining spirits. There's the knocker, you may have heard of from Cornwall, and then there's this other creature called a blue cap. And they're both good ideas, but I don't want I want to put them both in the book, but I don't want people to feel like we're duplicating and milking it. So I made the blue cap a stretch goal. I picked the stronger one, the better known one, and then the blue cap is a bonus. So those are some of the ideas that we have, and honestly, we missed the opportunity for some of the dragons in the core book to add these plot hooks. So that's a stretch goal, is to reprint the creature from the core rule book and add the plot hooks to it. More artwork. The artists really like working on these projects. I like working with artists, and fans like artwork, so it seems like an easy win.
So as Magonomia grows, how much do you still keep it to you as a creative director, and how much do you give to your freelance artists or the readers on directions towards what's going to be next as supplements come?
My philosophy of role-playing games is homebrew first. So we really are looking for people who, I think we're designing for people who want to run their own campaign and have their own story ideas. That said, people's creativity needs a starting point. I call it a framework, or priming the pump. And that's why I think these plot hooks for creatures are a hit. I mean, I've seen this successful in another game, in Ars Magica. So that is part of the answer. And you asked about the freelancers. These are individuals that are very creative. They're experienced gamers. They have a lot of enthusiasm for the topic. And I see myself as trying to feed and encourage that and let them go in their own, take the game in their own direction. And my role is to keep things unified and to align it with some kind of strategy. So, for example, I know that we need published adventures that are pretty much ready to play. And I've actually got a number of those in the pipeline. Those won't be Kickstarters. Those will be just products that we launch and sell. They're in playtesting and revision now, because game masters want to. They need something to get started with. You can persuade your group to try Magonomia, your gaming group. Do I want to make that hard? Right? Do I want to make you have to design your own whole adventure first? Learn the game, and no. So I want to create a paved road to this creative independence for the customer, and I'm referring to the customer as the game master. The game player is also a customer. And I'm really focusing on the game master as my strategy, because if you have game masters who want to run Magonomia, sales will pick up and the community will grow. It's going to succeed or fail. I think any game is going to succeed or fail on game masters. So since I can't do everything, I'm concentrating my priorities on making things easy for the game master. The Bestiary is an example of that. It's a pilot, and it's it's sending a message. I hadn't really thought about this until now, but it's sending a message that we've got this historical fantasy game, and the core book talks a lot about historical adventures. The Bestiary is sending a message that this is also fantasy, and you can play it as fantasy. We encourage you to play it as fantasy. Don't get hung up on the history. It's there for you.
Right. But you bring up a really good point. As someone that creates games like this, is that you do have two audiences. You do have the game master audience, and you have the player audience. The player audience is larger, but the game master audience is also the one that kind of seems to be in charge of the product. How do you balance that? Is there anything specific you're thinking about that is more geared towards the players?
Yeah, there is actually. This is in the pipeline. I just don't know when it's going to come out. Magonomia is a big, thick book, and it's kind of intimidating. Looking for a leaner product that'll help you learn the game, and taking some of the lessons learned from the years of experience to make a quick start that tells you what you need to know to get started and differentiates it, because the fate system is different from the 5e system.
Right.
And it is a smart move, in my view, to explain here are the differences, like aspects are a big deal. For example, there are some other big differences. So to sort of get your mind into how the system works, how the setting works, give you the pre-generated characters. And we have this starter rules product, which is free. You can download it today on DriveThruRPG, but it's a big, thick book. And it's possible to make something a lot leaner that'll be a tutorial. And this would be a free product, the Quick Start. That's player oriented. Of course, we have ideas for supplements about more spells and further developing the magic as a player. When I look at the core book, it's a thick. I keep saying that it's a thick book.
Right.
It's got 190 plus spells in it. When I started this project, I didn't know if there would be enough spells. That's not the problem. Okay. So, a player-centered product would be, I don't believe in making new special rules that give you extra, like make you more powerful or let you do things that are way cooler, but different archetypes of wizards. So within there are 5 sciences of magic, and within each science, I should recap what the sciences are. They're alchemy, astrology, theurgy, which is the magic of commanding good spirits, sorcery, which is commanding whatever kinds of spirits, maybe going into the grayer areas of magic, and witchcraft, which is British folk magic. And within those, there's a range of different sort of character concepts that you can express. And for players, the paved road looks like saying, would your astrologer prefer to be a politician or a physician? Those both fall under the purview of very well aligned with astrology, or maybe even an explorer and navigator. That could be astrology too. So what are the ways that you can make a character concept within the swim lane of this science? And there's a lot that can be done to expand that. That's how we designed the sciences, was by identifying archetypes for each science and then producing spells that support the archetype to fill out the spell book. So I don't have clear plans for this, but to grow for players, right? When we're making, when sales pick up, when the game gets better known, low-hanging fruit would be more archetypes and the spells that go with them.
Mm.
So that's the sort of thing that's on my mind.
Wow. Yeah, that's pretty cool.
And there's more
Okay.
for players. We're just starting at Shewstone to make strategic decisions about digital gaming and digital tabletop. The merger of Roll20 with One Bookshelf, also known as Drive-Thru RPG, was a major event for us. And because we're using One Bookshelf as our distribution partner, one of our distribution partners, it makes a lot of sense for us to commit to Roll20 as a digital gaming platform. So another player sort of product that we can make would be character portraits and tokens for specifically this Elizabethan setting. And I think people will always pay for beautiful color artwork if you give them enough of it and price it appropriately.
Right. So this is exciting. So Andrew, you have, as we're saying, this is coming out on October 25th, 2022, as of this recording. Now, in order to make this interview kind of evergreen, if someone is listening to this from a year from now, where can they find the supplement book?
The best place to find it will be on Shewstone.com. You also will be able to find all our products on Drive-Thru RPG and most of our products on Indie Press Revolution, which is our retail partner.
Okay. And as you did mention too, it's like the best place for people to actually see that a really good anchor site, as you mentioned, is going to be Shewstone.com. Yep. What I love about it is you also have a great place where it's updated constantly. You're able to see like blog posts. It's a great spot right there. So definitely go check out Shewstone.com. It's right there.
Thanks.
Yeah.
And I also want to plug your favorite local game store. If you're fortunate enough to have a game store near you, definitely send them your business. Shewstone's has distribution partners who can get print books to your game store, and we also have the brick and mortar guarantee. So if you buy a Shewstone book in a store, you can get the PDF for free, either by emailing service@shewstone.com or at the Bits and Mortar website, which I'll follow up so you can put it in the links.
Cool. That's excellent. That is that's fairly unique. I haven't heard very many people doing that. That's a really good idea.
There's Bits and Mortar is a really cool initiative. It's to remove the barriers to buying print books at a local game store, right? By giving you the guarantee of the digital version PDF.
Wow.
If you do that. And for Shewstone, the way we make our money is on the digital version. We're a digital first company, and the markup for a print product, all of that goes to printing and to our distribution partners.
Wow. Excellent.
So we make the same money on a PDF or print copy. It's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other to us.
Right. Wow. Cool. Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Andrew. And listen, anytime there's a new supplement book, you got to come back on. I love all the work you're doing. This is exciting stuff.
Well, thanks. Thanks for your excitement. I'm honestly surprised I was able to talk about it for a whole episode, but here we are. Yeah. Proud to be here. Thanks for your time.
Thank you very much. where do you see your level of creating story plot? What am I trying to say here? Where, as the game line evolves and gets bigger, how much do you give? I'm trying to say that. I'm trying to say something, and it's like that keeps getting all meshed up in my head. Magonomia, right?
Magonomia.
Magonomia. Okay.
You got it.
As